Individualism is the single most important ingredient in the nation's values, but it cannot exist without being balanced by a sense of community. While a multitude of religious, ethnic, and racial communities exist, it is increasingly difficult to characterize the United States as a country or to appease most citizens at any given time. A President of the United States who can unify the diverse national community will be able to instill confidence in the government or will be most likely to have his agenda passed. George Herbert Walker Bush unified the American people through confidence in their government and military. In the spring of 1990, a summit meeting between Bush, the President of the United States, and Mikhail Gorbachev, Secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, resulted in what was the framework for the reduction of strategic arms and chemical stockpiles and cooperation on atomic energy research. To ensue, Bush and Gorbachev, along with the leaders of 20 other nations that make up NATO and the Warsaw Pact, signed a mutual non-aggression pledge which signaled the end of the Cold War, appeasing Bush's New World Order, which sought to break down Cold War alliances by allowing peaceful states to stand up against rogue ones. According to scholar William de Gregorio, quote, "In the United States, the swift victory lifted Bush's public approval rating and spawned a renewed sense of patriotism and confidence in the American technology and military prowess." End quote. In 1991, Iraq, under the control of Saddam Hussein, invaded Kuwait. George H.W. Bush believed that Iraq's conquering of Kuwait's oil reserves and the threatening of Saudi Arabia's set an international precedent that had to be reversed. Bush formed a coalition of countries to first put sanctions upon Iraq, and when those failed, the Bush administration received permission from the United Nations to attack Iraq. Bush achieved his primary goals in 6 weeks, which were to protect Middle East oil reserves and weaken Saddam Hussein's capacity to threaten his neighbors militarily. He demonstrated the ability to lead the international community in a time of crisis, and this rally event boosted his approval ratings to 89%. George Walker Bush, 43rd President of the United States, was able to pass controversial legislation when he unified the American people in a time of crisis. On September 11, 2001, a series of 4 coordinated terrorist attacks were launched by the Islamic terrorist group Al-Qaeda upon the United States in New York City and the Washington, D.C. area. 4 airplanes were hijacked by 19 Al-Qaeda terrorists and flown into buildings. President Bush addressed the nation at night at 8:30 and told the Americans,
"These acts of mass murder were intended to frighten our nation into chaos and retreat. But they have failed. Our country is strong. A great people has been moved to defend a great nation. Terrorist attacks can shake the foundations of our biggest buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America."
On September 20th, 2001, President Bush delivered a powerful speech about the new and lengthy battle on terrorism that won overwhelming support. Bush also strengthened his relationships with China and Russia during the tumultuous time. The two countries that were usually in discord with the United States agreed to back the United States in the Middle East. Next, on October 8, 2001, the President signed the executive order establishing the Office of Homeland Security. The President's ability to address the unease within his country with many decisive actions and poignant speeches and to enter into peaceful agreements with China and Russia caused his public approval rating to soar to 90%. R.W. Apple of the New York Times applauded Bush and said that Bush, quote, "is growing into the clothes of the presidency," end quote. The praise that Bush received gave him the power that he needed to persuade Congress to pass the USA Patriot Act with the goal to, quote, "significantly reduce restrictions on law enforcement agencies' gathering of intelligence within the United States in order to prevent terrorism," end quote. The USA Patriot Act garnered criticism in its supposed curtailment of civil liberties in order to ensure safety. Yet, President Bush was able to pass it through unifying support for his anti-terrorism initiatives. In the current presidency, President Obama has been most successful when he has unified the American people, such as when he made the decision to capture Osama bin Laden. Future presidents will be most successful when they too unify the people to restore the morale of the country and also use the people's support to pass key legislation.